Hello, data nerds and data enthusiasts. Welcome to lesson 2 of data analysis with Python. In our previous class, we talked about various aspects of data analysis, and we did a comparison between data analysis and data science. We talked about data types, types of data analysis, what a data is, the 5 V's. So I encourage you to go back and watch the introductory video because it will help you as you progress in this course. So today we'll be looking at the Python crash course. We talked about we'll have to look at basic concepts of Python basics and then try to understand some things that are really necessary about the Python environment. So by now, I believe you must have been able to install an editor in your machine, probably maybe Anaconda, Jupyter Notebook via Anaconda, either the cloud-based platform or probably installed in your local machine, or probably you were able to install VS Code editor as well, or maybe you just choose to use the online cloud-based platform in Google Colab. All good, they are all the same, the execution is the same, and the syntax is absolutely the same. So whichever one you've decided to use, it's all good, so you are good to go. Like I said in the first class, I use VS Code, which is a Visual Studio Code. So let's look at the environment and then we'll see the next thing to do. So if you're on Mac, if you check that on your Docker, like on the bottom left hand side, you see the Finder. You click on the Finder, you click on Applications, you click on Apps. When you click on apps, you see your various apps here and all the apps you've installed. So I just search for VS Code and then I double click. Now, when you when you open the VS Code for the first time or your Jupyter Notebook for the first time, you see an environment like this. So what you have to do is you click on New File. When you click on New File, you have three options: the text file, which is the built-in, you see the Python file, see the Jupyter Notebook. So our interest for this course is the IPYNB extension. So our interest here for this course is the Jupyter Notebook. So I click on the Jupyter Notebook. So it takes me to the editor, the IDE, where we write our codes and then do all our programming as we please. So, but then you discover there are some menus, and then you want to look at, okay, what are these used for and what are that used for? For instance, when you look here, you see code, you see markdown, you see run all, you see restart, you see the the kernel. So what you do is you need to understand the environment at first. So here we have what we call the cell. A cell is where we type our codes or type our text. So a notebook is made up of a series of number of cells. So what does the code cell does? A code cell is simply a cell where we type our codes, while a markdown cell is a cell where we type text or we write text, maybe to explain or to give reports on code or output we've gotten from writing a code. While the run all is running a series of cells. Maybe you just want to run, you have about 10 or 15 cells of code you've written, you want to run all of them uh, simultaneously. So you just click on the run. But outside that, if you're running or executing a single cell, you just click on this button here, or you use a shortcut on your keyboard, either on Mac or Windows. The shortcut is the same. You press the enter and the shift button on your keyboard, you execute the cell. So now the kernel is simply what executes the code on the background. So when you click on it, you see I have the Python-based kernel 3.139, but the latest I think is 3.14. So probably you have the latest. Mine is I have not updated it, but then it's still good. So when you if you see, I already selected it because I was actually doing something before I started this class. So, but then if you're opening it for the very first time, you have to click on the Python kernel and select the base version. So when you select this, and then you go back to your cell. So let's look at the code cell and markdown cells I was saying. For instance, this is a code cell. If I say A is equals to 6, and I run it, you see, it has been executed. This cell was executed in zero point 0.0 seconds. Mm? So now, but if I want to, I say, if I want to explain, probably I want to write a heading, say, saying, let's say, for instance, uh, data analysis with Python. Now, if I run this cell, you notice it's saying an error, invalid syntax. Data analysis with Python. It's pointing that this is an invalid syntax in Python. So which means something is wrong with my code. Why? Because this is a code cell, but I executed it without actually giving a code that follows the Python syntax. So if I want to do that, I want to give a heading like this. What do I simply do? I use a markdown cell. So if I click on a markdown cell now and type the same thing and say data analysis with Python, and then I run this code, see, it gives me an output, no error, right? That's because this is now a markdown cell. Python now understand this is a markdown cell. So it's just a text. So this is like a heading. Now, so how about if I want to make this heading bold? I just double click back on it. I want to make it bold, a little bit bold. What do I do? I use the hash button and the hash sign. So if I put the hash sign and put a space and then I run this code again, you see, it is now what? Bold. So if I want to make it like a subheading, I just add another sign. You see, it's a little bit reduced in the text size. So that's the difference between a code cell and a what? And a markdown cell. So if you notice, you see here you have this is untitled, that is, this is not saved. So how do you save? You can use a shortcut on your keyboard. Just press Control S and then select wherever you want to save this on your document. So I'm saving it here on my folder, and then I want to name it. Let's say, my work. Now, if you are naming it and you do not have this extension, which is the .ipynb, you might not be able to save the file. So the extension must be there to show that it is a Python file. So you must have the extension there, .ipynb. So if I click on save, this document now is now, so you can now see it is no longer showing untitled, it's showing my work. So now this is what the cell in Python talks about execution of codes, and then what a markdown text does as well. So now if you have like this particular cell, which is a code cell, if you can also convert a code cell into a text cell. So how do you do that? On your keyboard, you can use a shortcut. You can press the escape button. So if I press the escape button and M, if I press escape button and M, this particular cell can be converted into a text markdown cell. You see, it is now a markdown cell. So if I want to convert it back to a code cell, I'll press escape and Y. It will go back to being a markdown cell. So that's how it works, and that's how the Python editor functions. So now let's see, go back to lecture notebook, and then so said lesson 2, the Python crash course, introduction to Python. Definitely before, some of us have been hearing the word Python, but then the first time I heard the word Python, of course all of us know what comes to the mind, the snake. But then with time we got to understand what it is. So Python is basically just a programming language that has a very simple syntax to learn, though it's simpler syntax compared to other programming language like R, C, C++, and Java. So it's quite simple, and it has a lot of a huge library where you can perform a lot of functions and everything, visualizations and everything. So it's quite easy to use. It just requires time and constant practice. Though it's kind of slower in terms of execution when compared to Java and C. So now when let's look at okay, let's look at creating variables. So you say, what are variables? The variables are containers for storing data, values, and structures. So variables in this sense is just um, like a container where you go to save or store items inside. So a variable is just represents a container that holds value for the time being till when they are needed to till when they need to be used. So we say creating variables. Python has no command for declaring a variable. A variable is created the moment you first assign a value to it. So it is not a variable when a value has not been assigned to it. So if for example if for example sorry okay, if for example you say a variable is created the moment you first assign a value to it. So for instance, if I say a and then I say b and I run this code, you say name a is not defined. Why? It is just there. It is no longer, it is not yet a variable, because why? A value has not yet been assigned to it. So that's why I say the variable is created the moment you first assign a value to it. Now I say variables do not need to be declared with any particular type and can change the type after they have been set. So if you are declaring, if you are assigning a value to a variable, you don't need to say this is an integer, or this is a numerical value type, this is a categorical value type, this is discrete. No, Python automatically knows the variable type the moment you assign a value to it. So, and also, if a variable type can be changed. Maybe you assign an integer to a variable, it can be changed into a float data type. So now, for instance, I say I assign the value 5 to variable a. Now, automatically, if I run this code, a is now what? A variable. It's now having the value what? 5. So the 5 is assigned to the variable what? A. So a automatically is now what? A variable. So like you said, the data type is decided by Python automatically, aiming for a best match, because Python can determine what the type is. So now, but then you have to understand something. There's a difference between a is equals to 5 and a is equals to 5. So for this one, a is equals to 5 does not mean that a in this sense is the same thing as 5. No, but a in this instance, a has an equality to 5, which means a is same as what? 5. So it might be a little bit confusing. So in essence, what I'm saying is this. Here, this is an assignment statement. Why here, this is what? An equality statement. So this is the difference here. This is an assignment statement. You are simply assigning a value of 5 to say, okay, 5 as a variable, help me to store this data. A as a variable, help me to store this data 5. Here you are simply saying a is equals to 5. So this is an assignment statement, and this is an equality statement. You said rules for variable naming. Say cannot start with a number, no space in the name, it is case sensitive, avoid keywords like not. The reason why you said avoid keywords like not and assert is because most of these words are inbuilt functions on Python. Like print is a function, del is a function, the assert is a function, and is a function, not. So it is advisable to always avoid keywords in naming variables so that it will not cause complications and leads to errors when you write a long or a huge number of code cells, and then you have to start looking for how to debug the code and all that. So it is always advisable to avoid keywords like this in naming variables. So and then in programming, most times we adopt a naming convention that is quite simple and easy to understand. Most of the time you see the names are always in lower cases, and also we have what we call the Pascal case, and we have what we call the snake style naming. For instance, when you say my my lists. Now, this is called the snake style naming, or the snake style form of naming variables as well, or even saving. Like if you see when I was saving this, I use the snake style. So we have what we call the Pascal style. So this is the Pascal style. You see that I use capital letter for the C, the character C. So this is the Pascal style as well. So most times it's small letter because it is easier. Why? Because uh, the case is sensitive. It is case sensitive. So if you name a variable as case, for instance, if you call small letter case, it will not. it will not come up. Why? Because they are different. It is case sensitive. So that's why most times we adopt using what small letter to name variables. Okay, so let's look at variable creation. Very simple and straightforward. These are basics. So that's why I call it like a crash course. So he said in your current session, define an int variable called my int. Add a comment for it. This is an int number. So he said we should define a int variable and we should name it my int. So what is int? Int is simply what? An integer. Remember in the last class we talked about data types where I told you we have numerical and categorical, and under numerical we talked about discrete and continuous data types, right? So now an integer is a form of what? It's a form of a discrete numerical data type. So now, if you did basic mathematics, we talk about integer. We say what are integers? Integers are real whole numbers. Real whole numbers. That's an integer. So let's create a variable. Say we should name the variable my int. My int, that's my integer. That's a variable name. And then we said define a int variable call my int and add a comment for int. So let's call it, let's assign a value c into it, and then we add a comment. We say this is an int number. This is an int number. Now, why did I add the sign here, the hash sign here? It is simply to tell Python that after the value 6, this is a what? A comment. So if I run this code now, you see it will run successfully. But if I don't add this and I removed it and I run this code, it will give error. You see, it said invalid what? Syntax. So, but if I include the sign here, it tells Python that after this, the other statement is simply a comment. So Python automatically what? Ignores this because I commented it out. Python will automatically ignore this and run this. Okay, so if I run it now, you see my int, you see it will sorry, it will automatically run the line of code. So the next one says define a float variable called my float. Add a comment for it. This is a float number. So now you want to ask what is float. This is why I said in previous class that it is very, very necessary for you to understand basics. Now a float is a data type. What kind of data type? A float is still a numeric data type, but in the category of continuous data types. So you see, a float is simply a what? A numerical data type, but a continuous type. An integer is what? A numerical data type, but what? A discrete type. So that's why it's an integer. So a float is simply a number like, let's say, 23.65, 23.344444. It goes on and on and on and on like that. So this is what a float means. So he said we should create a variable, my float. So we'll call it my float equals to, let's say, 12.4, right? So I run the code as well. The code has been run. So the third one said define a string variable, my string. Add a comment for it. This is a string. Okay, let's add a comment here as well. Said add a comment for it. This is a float number. This is a float number. So the third one, let's create another variable, my string. My string. So what is now string? String is now another data type, but in this case, it is a categorical data type that has to do with words or text. Remember, we talked about data types, numerical, categorical. So a string is simply a categorical data type that has to do with words. So let's say my string, I say, my name is Emmanuel. Now, you notice something. If I run this code, we get an error. Now, it's showing me what? Invalid syntax. Why? It's pointing out that the variable I created, my name is Emmanuel, that this string does not follow Python syntax. And why is this so? In Python, strings are always enclosed with um the inverted comma, so either the double or the single. So if I add it here and then I add here and then I run this code, the error disappears. So strings are always enclosed with these inverted commas. The strings are always enclosed in it. Without that, you see that the code will not run. So now, um okay, now let's see. Now we've created these three variables, one an integer, one a float, one a string. So how do you know or confirm if this what data type this is? It is quite very, very simple. For instance, if I want to know what data type this is, I can simply just check for the type. I just say type. I say type. I want to check for my int. I put my int. If I run it, you see, Python will tell me that this is an integer data type. Okay, let's look at this one. I want to check what data type is the variable, my float. I run it, it will tell me that it's what? A float data type. This is it. So if I want, let's check for my string. If I run it, so it will tell me that what? That Python will tell me that this variable is a string data type. Okay, let's look at the exercise. Say create an integer object with a value of 1 and the three variables a, b, c referencing to it. Assign a with a value of what? A 2. So I give you about, let's say, 20-25 seconds to have a try and see if you can get this, and then we continue from there. So just take your time, 20 seconds, and see if you can get it. So I want to believe we all got it correctly. Yeah, I know we are all going to get it correctly. So let's look at it. We said create an integer object with a value of 1 and the three variables a, b, c referencing to it. Creating an integer with an object with a value of 1. Creating an integer object with a value of 1. Create an integer object with a value of what? 1. Okay, now, so look at it now. Let's say a is equals to 1, right? It's a variable. Where 1 is an integer and a is a variable, right? So instead we should create an integer object with a value of 1 and the three variables a, b, c referencing to it. So three variables, a equals to b equals to c equals to 1, right? So let's run this code. I've been able to successfully run this code. So in essence now, if we call, let's say, print a, right? If I say print a, I want to output the value of a. I run this code, it will give me 1. You see, which means a variable a has the value of 1. If I say I want to output the value of variable b, I say print b, I run it, it will still give me 1. I change it to c, I run it, it will still give me 1. So in essence, a, b, and c as variables are referencing the integer 1. Now the second one now says assign a with a value of what? 2. So now let's say a is equals to what? 2. I run this code. Now the third question said, is a and b referencing to the same object now? How do we check it using Python statement? So now how do we know if a and b are still referencing the same now? So let's see how we can check if they are both referencing the same thing now. Let's say I say a let's say I say a is b and I run the code. Can you see what Python is telling me? Python says false. Why is it saying false? But we said a is equals to b is equals to c and equals to 1. So why is Python now telling me that it is false? Python is now telling me that a is b is false. Okay, let's see. A is c. I run the code. It still says false. Okay, what if I now say b is c? It says true. So why is it so? It is simply because initially we said a is equals to 1 and we referenced the three variables to 1, but we later changed a is equals to 2. So it means Python will no longer make reference to this. It will now make reference to this. So that is why we are getting false. So on the third question, is A, B, C referencing to the same object now? Of course, definitely it's no. So, and it said, how do we check it using Python statement? This is it. A is B. If you put A is B, A is C. You see, it says false. So we have been able to confirm. If you put A is B, false, A is C, you get false. But if you say B is C, you get true. If you say B is A and run, you get false. So see, I believe we all got that. That's quite easy. So if you want to delete cells, you just click on the cells and then you click here to delete them. Maybe any cells you are not using. So now let's look at working with strings. That's our basics on Python. Like I said, strings is a data type, a categorical data type that has to do with text, words, which I said they are enclosed in the inverted commas. So it says strings are wrapped by quotation marks. Both double or single quotation marks can do. Just like I said, so if you are using the quotation marks, you can use the single or the double. They work in pairs, e.g., this is the example ABC book, blah blah blah, like that. So it's a using plus to connect multiple strings and all that. Okay, so instead of much talks, let's go into practice and do this. Let's take for instance, I want to create a variable. Let's say this is a question. My variable name here now is question. The question is, what are you studying? Then let's say I answered, okay, I create another variable and the variable, sorry, and the variable name is, I name it answer. So I say question, what are you studying? The answer, I am studying data science. Now, if I want to output the value of the first variable, which is question, I can simply just say print question. If I run it, you see the output. This is the output. Say, what are you studying? Right? Or if I want to output it, I can simply just type the variable name and run the code, and it will still give me the same output, right? But most times we use print statement for outputting results. Okay, now it said, you see, like they work in pairs, right? And they are enclosed in this. But if I remove this, if I remove these quotation marks and then I run this code, so it said object studying not found. So you see that you always encounter problems. Although if I remove this one as well, I run the code, you see, it's showing me invalid word syntax. So that is what happens when you're working with string data type. So they are always enclosed in the quotation mark, right? Okay, so that's by the way. So now I said using the plus sign to connect multiple strings. We can combine two strings together. These are two variables. The first variable here is question, the second variable here is what answer. We can combine these two variables together by using the plus sign, by simply saying say question plus answer. So if you run this, you see, you get an output. What are you studying? I am studying data science. But you will notice that after the question mark, there's no space between I and the question mark. And that's why where line starting a new line comes in. So but then now when you run this code like this, you give you the output, but then you can simply just say use the print statement, just say print. Sorry, you can simply just use the print statement to output your result, which is the best practice. So now using the new line, so instead of saying what are you studying all being at the same line, we can say what are you studying as a question, then the answer comes beneath the question. So by simply doing what, if we want to do that, we just simply say print, we put question, which is a variable, print question plus. After you print the question, you are telling Python print the question. After the question plus, use the backslash and then end. That's go to a new line. You are telling Python after the question, go to a new line, then plus answer, right? So if you run this, you see the output. What are you studying? I am studying data science. That is how to use that. So use print to print out the string, which I have shown you. Please you use print statement to output, or you just call the variable name to output. So you are using, you want to print the output the result. You said use the print statement question plus backslash n, then plus answer. So once Python sees this, he knows you are telling it, okay, print question, which is what are you studying? Then go to a new line and then print answer. So question plus new line plus answer. So you said, what are you studying? I am studying data science. As simple as that. Very, very easy. You can do that multiple lines. Or let's say you have another variable. We call it answer 2, right? I say equals to, and then I say I am in my third year, right? So now this is another variable. If I run it now, let's say this is, I add the third one now. I say plus again, answer 2, and then I run this code. If I run it, you see, what are you studying? I am studying data science. I am in my third year. You can see now there is no space, right? So this is where the next line comes in. You say answer, right? After you put the answer, you put plus backslash n plus answer 2. Run the code. So what do you get? What are you studying? I am studying data science. I am in my third year. Quite simple if you ask me, right? So let's see. So here now we talk about working with strings indexing. Now this is an interesting part because it is a very, very important tools you need to learn, especially when you have to deal with big data with a lot of columns and all that. So, and strings are always common most times in most data sets and all that. So you need to understand how to use string. So strings are simply a sequence of characters, like I have written here. You may get a certain character from the string by its index. So index is simply the position a character occupies in a string. So it's just the position of characters within the string. So every single in a string, every single character has a position it occupies. That is automatic. So now, so there are two ways of indexing for a string of length n. So let's say a string that has about 10 characters or 20 characters. We have two ways of indexing or determining the position. So they said the positive index starting from 0 until n minus 1. Reverse index starting from minus 1. Okay, instead of too many talks, let me just show you an example. For instance, let's say I have a character. Let me call it Emmanuel. Okay, that would be too much. Let's say Ima. Yeah. So I said index. The index in this one now, the position, it starts from 0. So it's 0, E is 1, 2, 3. And we also have the reverse index. So the reverse index now is starting from the back of it. So because we do not have minus 0, so in this case now, this will now be like minus, the index number here will be minus 4. This will be minus 3. This will be minus 2. And this will be minus 1. So this is the position that each of these characters occupies in this string. So E has a positional value of 0, which is the same thing as minus 4. M has a positional value of 1, which is the same thing as minus 3. The other M has a positional value of 2, which is same as minus 2. The same thing as this as well. So what do we do from there? We look at it. Let's have an example to explain this. Now let's see we have I name it let's say I call the variable name, and then I said Ima, right? So I run this code. Now I want to check the output. I said print variable name. I run this code. Say it gives me the output Ima. Let's say I want to get only E, the character E. I just want to output only the character E. So what can I do? I'll just say Ima sorry, the variable name, and then I use the bracket, the square bracket, and then I call the position. Ima has a positional value of 0. So if I put the index number 0 here and I run the code, you see that it will output E. So let me remove this print statement first. You see that it will output what? E. If I call the index value -4, and I run the code, you see it's still giving me E. So whether I use the positive index and the negative index, they will give you the same thing. So, but if I use the index number 2 and I run the code, it will give me what? M. You see? If I use index number 3, I run the code, it will give me what? A, which is this. If I use index number -1 and I run it, it will still give me what? A. So how about if I want to get, let's say, only the first two characters in Ima, that's E and M? What do I simply do? I can say I will just put 0 and then I use the column. I said the index number 0 to the next index. Ordinarily, the next index here is 1, right? But let's see something. If I put 1 and I run the code, do you notice that it gives me E? Despite I state that I want the characters from index 0 to index 1, right? The reason is because in this indexing or slicing, uh, the beginning is inclusive while the last one is exclusive. So which means if you want to get up to the index number of 1, you have to go as much as going to 2. So if I run it now, you see it's now giving me EM. So if I want to go as much as to get the index of up to the index of 2, I have to extend it to 3. So if I want to get up to that, if I change this to 3 now and I run it, you see it will give me EMM, right? That is indexing uh, in strings. That's how it works. That's how it functions. It's just positional values of characters within a string. Now, but in also using a string now, if you notice, you see that Ima here is in lowercase, right? So now, but how if I want to convert it to uppercase, how do I convert it? Very simple. You call the name, the variable name is name, right? You say name dot upper, and then you use the brackets. When you run this, you see it has been converted into what? Uppercase. But then now you've converted into uppercase, but you will have to reassign it to the variable name. So which means in essence, I'll have to still reassign this value now to the variable. Okay, let me explain that so that you understand now. You see that I have converted it into uppercase, right? But if I call the variable name, which is name, right? I run the code, it is still in small letter. That is because I have not reassigned it back to the variable name. So I have to name it back, say name is equals to name dot upper, which means this variable name now, the variable name, I want to change it to uppercase, but I'm reassigning it back to the variable name. So now, if I run this code now, you see it will now be Ima. The Ima is now in lowercase, is in uppercase rather. So the same thing, it functions the same thing as lowercase as well. Just the same way we talked about the uppercase. Just like it is now, if you see, this is now in uppercase. See, if I call Ima, the variable name Ima. So, but if I want to change it back, I'll just say name dot lower, name dot lower, then put the bracket. I run it. It is now in lowercase, and then I reassign it back. So if I call the variable name Ima now, you see, it's back to now lowercase. So that's how it functions. So now let's look at let's say find the find function. That's this the find. Let's say for instance I have okay, let's say I have a variable name called data, and it's a string which says my name is Emmanuel, right? I execute this code. Now, within the string, I want to find just the name Emmanuel. I can simply call the variable name, which is data dot find, and then I use the bracket. Find what? I say Emmanuel, right? And then I run the code. You see, it will show me the positional index number of Emmanuel. Now look at this. This is 0, 1. The space is included. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you see, so the find now will help me to locate the position that word Emmanuel starts from, it occupies. So that's what the find function does. Or if I change this now to, let's say, name, so it will tell me what? 3. That the word names starts from the position index 3, which is true. This is 0, 1, the space 2, then name starts from index 3. So that's how the 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 find function works. And then let's look at the f string. The f string is a form of using expression to bring out statements or output, like okay, like let's say um okay, let me use an example. Okay, let me still use this example data. Let's say I want to print a statement, or let's say, okay, let me use another example. Let's say, for instance, I say a is equals to, I say AB is equals to 7, and I say BC is equals to 5, and then I execute this. Then I want to make a statement that I want to make a statement that 7 is bigger than 5, or I want to make a statement that the value of BD is 7 times 5. I can use an f string statement. So I'll say print, I put f string, I said the value of BD is, so I use a curly bracket to put the expression I want to say. The value of BD is AB times BC. So if I run this code, the Python will automatically calculate it for me. So you said the value of BD is 35. So this is what f string is used for. You just put the f string, the quotation mark, then I put the expression I want. The value of PD is AB times BC. So Python calculates it automatically. 7 times 5 is what? 35. So that's what we use the f string, the f string for. So moving forward, say string functions and slicing. So this is question 2. We've done question 1. Let's see how we can go towards this. So but I'll give you a few seconds to also try maybe A and B to see if you can say for string data, hello world, please perform the following. The string now, the variable name string with hello world, output the complete string, output the first character in the string, output the substring between the 3rd to 6th in the string, exclusive, output the string reversely for the last 3 characters, connect the string with another string of text and print it out. Use an S string to print out there are XXX characters in the string. So I'll give you, let's say, 20-25 seconds to see if you can go through this. So you can try you can try all. If you can try A, B, and C and C. Then after 25 seconds, let's see what you were able to do. So okay, so I want to believe we all got it correctly. And then so let's say this is quite easy. If you've been following what we've been doing, so it should be quite easy. So the variable name is string, and it says the string is hello world, right? Okay, so we execute this, and then that's it. Now the first say output the complete string. So like I have been saying, we have various ways you can output string. The first one, you can simply call the variable name, then which is str, and then if you run, you get hello world. The second way, and which is the most widely adopted method, is using the print statement. So you simply say print, call the variable name, and then you run. You get hello world, right? So the third way, as long as this is concerned, is using the indexing, which we've talked about. So you can simply just say str, and then use the square bracket, and then you use column. Then you print, you get hello world. In this place, you notice I did not specify index number or not or anything. So me using column is simply just saying print everything, print everything. But if I specify, let's say for instance, an index number of 2 and I execute, you see, it will only output from the second index number to the last. But in this case, I want to output everything since the question says output everything. So I run. So I get everything printed out. That's for question A. Now say output the first character in the string. This should be quite simple and straightforward, right? You just simply call str, which is the variable name, and then the first character should have an index number of what? 0, right? So and then you execute, you have what? H. Now the other question says output the substring. Okay, I will leave this for you to go and do, but I'll give you a clue. You say output the substring between the third to sixth in the string is exclusive. It's simply saying the first the first I'm simply saying the third character should be excluded and the sixth character should be excluded. So get this the characters that are in between the third and the sixth. That's what it means by exclusive. So you D as well, you do that yourself. Output the string reversely for the last three characters. So instead of using the positive index, it's saying use the word the negative index. So for for E, it say connect the string with another string of text and print it out. Okay, so which means we should create another string. So in case you are wondering how you can add cells, let's say you want to add a cell beneath this particular cell now, you can simply just put your cursor here, anywhere here, and probably, no, sorry, you can simply just click here, so maybe somewhere outside here. You see this blue check mark is showing that I'm currently operating on this cell. So if you click B on your keyboard, which is a shortcut, if you click B on your keyboard, it will add a cell for you under. So if I put my cursor here and I click A on my keyboard, it will add a cell above it, right? Or you can simply just click here. You see, it will add a cell for you. Okay, so back to the question. It said connect a string with another string of text and print it out. So let's create another string. Let's call it the variable name string 2. I call it string 2 equals to the string name said test. So I put it test. So we execute. It said we should do what? We should connect the string with another string of text. Simple, by just simply saying print string variable name plus string 2. So we execute. So we said hello world test. So that's it. Now the other one said use a f string to print out there are xxx characters in this string. So he's saying that you should write using f string, write an expression to show that this is the number of characters in this string. So for instance, now we can easily count the number of characters in this string because it is small. So imagine a situation where the string is as much as 1 million. Will you start counting them one after the other? Of course, there should be a way for you to check. So let's use f string. Okay, for you to check the number of characters, you use the function called the len function. So you say len, which variable do you want to check the character? You put the variable, you put, you say len character, sorry, len str, which is string. You run the code. So it tell you that there are what 12 characters in this, and if you count it, you find out that there are actually 12 characters in this word, in this string. So writing the f statement, if we are writing the f statement, then simply just say print in bracket f string, then the quotation mark, there are, according to the question, there are. So instead of coming here now to write 12 characters, we are only knowing that it's 12 characters because we have already checked. So what do you do? There are. So you use curly bracket, there are len, in bracket, you put the variable name, there are. So Python will calculate it. So after that, say there are, put the expression characters in this string. So when you run this code now, the 12 automatically appears. They said there are 12 characters in this word, in this string. So this is how to use the word, the print and f string statement together. So you try as much as you can to see if you can do the C and the D part of it. And then let's look at main data structures, which we've been talking about data to show you how understanding the data types and data structures is. Because if you do not understand it as we are progressing here, and it might look a bit easier here, but when you don't understand what we are doing now, as we are progressing, when we start doing with real data, you definitely have issues. So, but then that is why it is important for you to pay attention and understand these basics. So the main data structures, we talk about the sequence, the order sequence of objects, which includes lists and tuples. List is just simply combination of different items. They are mutable, which means you can change them. You can make corrections on them. But while tuples are not mutable, so when tuples are created, they cannot be changed. So on the mapping type of data structures, we have the dictionary, which talks about key value pairs. For instance, let's say you want to create a dictionary of items, for instance. So in the dictionary, you have the key can be the name, and then the name of the fruit can be the value. So for instance, you can say name, mango, price 20 naira. So you see they are paired. The name and the name and the mango goes together. The name is the key, the mango is the value or the object. So that's how dictionary functions. And then you talk about set. You should be familiar with set. Another collection of unique items cannot have multiple same objects. For instance, we know in a set, in a universal set, you cannot have two elements that are the same. For instance, if a set combines numbers from 1 to 5, you cannot have one twice. You cannot have two twice because they are the same thing. So that's what it means, have multiple same objects. So some of the list methods we use include sort, append, pop, len, max, and min. All these are quite inbuilt functions. The sort simply arranging sorting numbers maybe in ascending or descending order, and then we have the append, which simply means adding elements or objects into a list. Pop is simply removing elements from a list. And then the function with len, we've used len just now, knowing the number of characters or total number of values in the list. And then max, getting the maximum values, min, getting the minimum values. So we looked at an example here. So let's look at an example here. I have, okay, this might be, let's say I call this variable character, and then I have 2, 3, 9, 10, 4, 5, 6, 7 as what? As as the list of objects. So if I run this, for instance, you can see the code has been run, has been executed. So if I want to use the sort, I can use it to sort. I can use it to sort these values. Okay, for instance, I think okay, they are not ordered. They are unordered, so they are not sorted. So if I want to use the sort, I can just say call the variable character dot sort, and then if I execute this has been sorted. So how do we know? Let's call the variable and see. So if we call the variable execute, so you see it has arranged them in ascending order. So you see that if you probably just use the sort and then it will sort it out. The reason you see I put a command here, I say reverse equals to true. So I'm saying I want it to be in descending order. So the first one I did was just using the sorts. So the first one I used sorts. Now sort now by default we will arrange it in ascending order. But in order to get it in descending order, you add an additional statement to say that okay, not in an ascending order, or this time around in descending order. So and what's that? You use reverse equals to true. So you are saying this it should not be in ascending order, it should be in descending order. So if I execute and then I call the variable now, so you see it is now in what? In descending order. Why this by default? The sort by default is in ascending order, but if you want to make it in descending order, you use this statement reverse is equals to what? True, to give you the output in what? In descending order. So the other one is append. Append is simply used for adding um additional elements into a list. So the variable name is character, char. So if we want to append, let's say we want to append another number into the list, so we can simply say variable name character dot append. So what do we want to append? Let's say we want to append the value 13, right? So if I execute, 13 will be added. So let me call the variable and see if it has been added. So see, 13 has been added. Now the reason why you see 13 appearing twice is because I ran the code twice. I ran the code twice, that is why. So if I run this, if I execute this code again, 13 will still be added. You see? So that is append, to add to a list. Now you see that it is in this case now, in append, you see how it is adding at the list at the back side of it. So what about in the situation whereby you want to specify a particular place where you want to add? That's another thing. You can specify the index number. Okay, I want you to add 13 at index number 3 or at index number 0. So that one is also a function as well. You can also do that. So but by default, if you just say append, it will append it to what's it called, to the ending part of the list. So the other function we have here is the pop. Pop is just simply for removing. You want to remove. So let's say I want to remove this 13 now. I can say character dot pop. Then what do I want to remove? Now I specify the index number of the value I want to remove. So -1. Let's say I want to remove from the last part. So if I execute, so you see 13 will be removed. One of the 13 will be removed. If I call the variable again now, okay, let's say I call the variable here now. You see, one of the 13 has removed. If I run this code again now, it will remove another one now. I run this code, another of the 13 will be removed. So see, you see, it has been removed. So that's how it functions. That's how it works. You use pop for removal, append for adding. Then you look at len. We've talked about len just to check the number of characters in a variable. Why the max and the mean are similar. To use the max and the mean is just to get the maximum value and the minimum value. Understand? So we say, let's say max, we want to get the maximum value from this variable name and character. So we say chl. If you run it, you see, show you that the maximum value is what? Is 13. And then if you want to get the mean as well, if you want to get the minimum value, you just say mean. So if you run this, if you say to get the minimum value, you say mean character, run it. If you get, you give you 2. 2 is the minimum, and said 13 is the maximum. So okay, 10, because we removed 13. We removed the 13 before, so it was remaining I think 10. So that's all for that, right? We looked at len, max, min. Yeah. So let's move to the list method, question 3. So we are given a list of objects, a list of items, which is this, and it says complete the following tasks. And the first one says output the complete my list. B, output the second to third element. Output the second to third element. Output the last two elements. Print the combine my list of list and tiny list. Return the first value and remove it from my list. Check the updated list. So I think this should be quite easy for you to do. So I give you 20 seconds, 25 seconds, or 30 seconds to try and see which of them you should be able to do. So when we come back, we'll continue from where we stop. Okay, so I believe you're also able to get the question 3. So kudos to everyone who got it. If you don't get it, don't worry. It's always like that. With time, you get to understand better. Okay, so let's see. We have a list. So let me copy instead of retyping. So I just copy and then I paste here. Okay, but you see there's some errors here, so I have to change this to the actual quotation mark. Yeah. See, the reason why, okay, just a minute, so you understand better. Now, if you notice, you see that the quotation marks are only used for this. Okay, let's change this name to like, let's say David. If you notice, you see that the quotation mark are only used for like David and John. Why? That's because they are strings. So you don't need to use quotation marks for numbers, whether float or integers. You don't need. But for strings, you must always enclose with the quotation mark. Either double quotation mark or single quotation mark. They can always work. So I run this. We've created a variable list. We said we should output the complete list. We've already talked about how to output. We talked about just calling the variable name and then you get to output, or you use a print statement, which is use print and then enclosed in the brackets and then run. You get that. That's outputting the complete list. Now it said output the second to third element. Outputting the second to third element. If you were outputting the second to third element, definitely you said the third element, the second element here is what, 789. So what is the index number? 01, right? So we can just say print what is the index number. The index number is okay, in order not to make it complicated, just use the variable and say the variable name is list, you call it, and then what do? You put the index number as 1 to Z output the second to third element. So what is the second element is to the third element? So we just want to output this and this. So what is the index number of this and this? 0, 1, 2, right? Remember we said the beginning is inclusive while the ending is exclusive. So instead of just stopping at index 2, we have to extend to index 3 so that this will be included. So if we run this, we'll get 786 and what? 2.23, right? Or you can just add the print statement. So now the third question says output the last two elements. The last two elements, right? So the last two elements is John and 70.2. So how do you output John and 70.2? That should be quite easy for you if you've been following. So you just know that it is easy by just simply saying you can call lists, use the square bracket. So if you see the index number of John, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Or you say -1, -2, whichever. Rather you say -2. If you say -2 to the ending, definitely after that you know that that's just the last. Or you say -2 to -1, whichever way you. Oh, sorry. We have to go one extra. Like say -2 to the end. So if you run it, you see you get it. So or you use the positive index, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, right? You say 3, you still get the same thing. So whether you use the positive or the negative, the positional values are always the same thing. So you said print the combine my list of lists and tiny list. Okay, so let's assume we have another list we call tiny list, right? um and then let's say we have mango, orange, and then maybe fruit. Let's say fruit. Sorry, fruits. So if we are outputting, okay, and run this, said we should print the combine my list. So which means simply is asking us to combine this list and this list together, right? So in simple terms, what do you think we can do? Which of the functions or which of the methods do you think we can use to combine the two? So which means we are creating another list, my list, and combining these two two lists, right? So how do you think we can add? Should we just say list plus tiny list? Will it work? Do you think it will work? Okay, let's have a try and run the code. Okay, so we've run the code, it has been executed. Let's call the variable we just created, my list, and see the result. It will combine the both of them together. We run it. Voila. So we're correct. We've been able to make it into a one single list. So we've combined both lists and tiny lists, which were two separate lists together, into a single list with a variable name called my list. So you can see David 786 2.23, John 7.2, and all that. So the other question says return the first value and remove it from my list. Check the updated list. So return the first value. So what is the first value from my list? The first value is David. So if we want to get, and it has an index number of 0, so how do we display it? By just simply saying my list index number 0, then we run, we have David. So how do we remove it? Remember we talked about removing it then. So if I say, for instance, I say my list dot pop, right? The index number of this is what? 0, right? So you see, I will successfully remove David. So if I call list again, let's see now. If I call the list and then I run the code, you see David is no longer there. I have popped it, I have removed David. So that's how it works. So then I believe you were able to get it. And then so when we've talked about lists, we look at tuples. See, tuples I used to solve multiple. I used to store multiple items in a single variable. A tuple is a collection which is ordered and unchangeable. The elements are not mutable. Once assigned, the elements of tuples cannot be changed. You see, in list now we've just added lists. We remove, we add, we combine. But in tuples, it is not the same. Tuples are not mutable. You cannot change the elements in tuples. So once they have been created, they remain that way. You cannot change them. So they are quite been they are quite popular and has a little advantage, and why they are very very essential. I said because the immutable nature of the tuple helps to guarantee that elements are not changed. This ensures data integrity, which is important in certain scenarios. We understand that in data analysis, data integrity is very very important. So tuples makes it impossible for you to change their values or carry out any editing operation. So that is why they are very very good and also essential. So yeah, in tuples indexing as well. Just like if you remember, we talked about when we started variable creation. We said okay, let me scroll back so you get to understand. Okay, when we started with variable creation, there was a statement we made. If you see number 2 here, no, number 3, we said variables do not need to be declared with any particular type, and can even change type after they have been set. So in simple terms, a variable that's it's a list can also be changed into a tuple. The same thing, a list can be changed into a set or a dictionary. So that's how it functions. That's what that statement means there. So let's look at the tuples now. Now we let me add some cells below. Now let's look at this. We are having the same what's it called? The same list. Looking from the list we initially do. Okay, let me recall it here, which is let's see, what was the first one? List. Yeah. So let me call it here so that we can see it here. So this was the list. We can combine this list into a tuple without necessarily typing it. So and then from the what I wrote on the note here that says my tuple. Okay, so let's name it my tuple. So we don't really need to type it out. Let's say my tuple. So I'll just simply convert this list into a tuple. What do I do? I just put tuple here, and then in brackets I probably see, I don't know, probably you might find it difficult to understand, or probably you just want us to like type it out or something. But then if you run the codes and then you call the variable my tuple, you see, it becomes a what? A tuple. Without me necessarily to type, I just converted this list. Now, this variable name list, which is this, which was the original list we had here. Okay, which is this. You can see the bracket now. For list, the brackets are mostly square bracket, but for tuple, you use the round brackets. See here? You see here now, you see that the bracket has changed into a round bracket. So now I created a tuple by just converting the list into a tuple. So this is the variable name I'm using. My tuple is equals to, so this tuple here is specifying that I want to convert what is inside this bracket into a what? A tuple, having a variable name, my tuple, right? So I just, okay, let me put the print statement here, and the print statement, so that to display the tuple. So the same thing. So we've successfully converted the list we initially had into a what? A tuple, instead of retyping everything again. So that's what it is. So now let's look at the operations we did earlier on list. The operations we did earlier on list, you discover that they were mutable. We did some pop. We also did some append and all that. So let's look at tuple now, and try an example. Let's see. Now I want to say my tuple dot append. Let's say I want to append the value 8 to the thing. So let me run the code and see. So you see, you get an error. See, tuple has no attribute append. So that's why I say that tuples are not mutable. So let's say I want to try the pop as well. Let's say I use pop, and then I want to remove 70.2 from it. I say 70.2. I run the code. See, tuple has no attribute pop, so it is not mutable. So you cannot make changes to it. Let's look at the assignment. Okay, but let's go back to list now, the original list we had, right? And run the code. See, this is the list, right? So on list now, you remember if we do list dot append, let's say I append 12. I run, you will see that the 12 will be added. If I call the variable name here list now, you see 12 has been added. But in tuple, it does not work. It doesn't work that way in tuples. Then you look at assignment statement as well. Probably, let's say, for example, I want to assign a number into the list. I can simply just say list on index. Okay, let me call it out first. Let me call the variable list. Let me print so that we'll be seeing it here. Now this is list. Now this is the list, right? These are the variable. Remember, I just added 12. So now let's say on this list, I want to add a number, but instead of allowing it to add at the ending part of the list, I want it to be added maybe somewhere here before 786. That is index 1. I want it to be added in index 1. I can simply say list. I use the square bracket and say index 1 equals to add a number, that's add a number 13. If I run this code now, if I run this code and then I call the variable name list, bam, you see 13 has been added, right? Replacing what you have 786. So that's how to assignment statement. You are assigning a new value to the specified index number. So that's how it is. But in tuples, this is a problem in tuple. For instance, let's look at the my tuple, the variable name my tuple. Let's assign a value. For instance, let's say index 7, index 1, and then we want to assign a value of 12, and then we run this code. You see, give you an error. Tuple does not support a time assignment items assignment, so which means it is not mutable. You cannot change. They are ordered. Tuples are ordered. You cannot change them. That is how they are. So, and they ensures data integrity. So that is one of the advantages of tuple. So the other part of our data structure is under sets. Of course, we all know sets. In high school, we must have done sets before, where we talk about universal set, subset, intersection of set and the likes. It's the same thing here, but here now the sets, why list makes use of the square brackets and tuples makes use of the round brackets, sets and dictionary makes use of the coily brackets, just like we know in basic maths. So you still follows the same rule and the same pattern. Just like we just talked about list and tuples here, we can also convert the list or the tuples into a set without necessarily writing creating a new data set. Like let's say if we want to create a new set now, I can just say set, I can just say s, maybe the variable name is equals to, I want to create a set, and then I say 2 3 4 5 9 and this is a set, right? Well, if I want to still use the other list, where I will just convert it by simply just doing, say, by simply just say variable name s, or say s1, let me call it s1, that's variable name. I can just say set, right? And then put list here. So which means I want to convert this list here into a set. So if I run the code and then I call s1, you see, it has changed to curly brackets. So I've successfully combined this variable name set into a list into a set. So that's how conversion works. Okay, but now let me just create a set myself instead of using the other one. Let's just create a set. Let's say we have a set that contains elements 2 3 5 6 7 78, right? And then let's say we have another set s2, and that has, let's say, 3 4 0 8, and then probably let's say 67, right? Now we can perform basic operations. Okay, let me execute. Now we can perform basic operations on this set 1 and set 2. For instance, we can insert new elements into the set by using the method dot add. So if, for instance, I want to add a new element into set 1, I can simply say s1 dot add. So what do I want to add? Let's say I want to add 23. So if I run this code, it has been executed. If I call s1 now and I execute, you see it will add 23 to the set now, because it's an orderly manner, because it is ordered. Sets will be they are ordered, so it will add it at a position where it is supposed to be. You see that 78 is bigger than 23. It did not add it at the end, but in list you see that lists are unordered. If you want to add, they add at the ending part, but in sets they are ordered, they are arranged and organized, so it has to be in that order. So you see where the 23 is being added. I can also add, let's say I add an element in set 2. Let's say I say s2 dot add, and then maybe I add 20 and I run, and then I call s2. So you see where 20 is being added. 20 has been added, right? That is how it functions. So we can also find the difference between two sets. So for us to get the difference between two sets, I know in basic maths, when we do the difference between two sets, the difference between two sets, I think, is the element that is present in one of the sets and not in the other set. So if, for instance, we say s1 minus s2, we are simply saying what are the elements in s1 and not in s2. So if we run this code, it will give you 2 5 6 7 23 78. So look at the two sets. 2 is here, 2 is not here, right? So you see, that's why we have 2. 5 is here, 5, but 3 is here, 3 is here, so it did not include 3. 5 is here, 5 is not here, 6 is here, 6 is not here, 7 is here, 7 is not here, 78 here, 78 is not here. So you get this. So if we interchange it and we say s2 minus s1, you see, it will give you the elements that are in set 2 that are not in what? In set 1. That is the difference of sets. So how about if we want to get um the intersection of a set? The intersection of a set is simply what is present in set 1 and present in set 2. And in basic math, I think it's represented by and, right? So we can say s1 and s2. So if we run, it will give you 3. It is 3 that is common. The element 3 is common between set 1 and set 2. So how about if we want to get the union of set 1 and set 2, which is represented by or in basic math. When we say set 1 or set 2, we are simply talking about the union of both sets. That's combining both sets together. So when we say x1, you represent you use the sign on your keyboard, S1, S2. This represents or. So if you run, you see it will combine both the elements in both set 1 and set 2 without repetition. You see 3 is common between set 1 and set 2, but it is not repeating the 3 twice. So that is the union of set. Now, this is quite simple. We've understood these basic operations and also understood some of the uh, basic functions, inbuilt functions in Python. It is also necessary for you to know some basic arithmetic operations. For instance, when you say when you have for instance, let's say a variable t equals to 3, and then you have another variable w is equals to 6. Basic operation like saying t times w. If you run, okay, I think this is the I had space here, indentation. So we said t is equals to 2, w is equals to 6, t times w 12. If you want to say, for instance, you want to get the square of t, you can simply just use um what's it called, the variable name, and then use the sign on your keyboard. The I forgot what's the name of this sign on the keyboard. So but then these are basic operations. If you use this operation like this are sign like this input. So you say maybe probably you want to get the square or the square of t. Let's say you want to get the square of t. So that's what I mean. But then I am trying to prepare some assignments, some works that we need to do so that it will make it easy for those who have never done anything like that before. So I will take my time to do that. But on this particular class, we've been able to look at Python characteristics, basic data types and structures, string manipulation, string slicing and indexing, slicing of data structures and their method. So this is the crash course 1. In the next crash course, that's still on lesson 2, we'll still look at other operations where we'll get to understand fully, and then from there probably start teach you how to upload data. Please do well to try as much as you can to follow my page on both Facebook and on YouTube, and also click on subscribe so that you get to see new videos as soon as I release them, so that you don't get to miss out. And also click on subscribe. Click on subscribe, please. Also try as much as you can to help share this video so that it will have a better and wider audience, because that's the only thing that will encourage me to keep releasing videos. So keep in touch, always try. If you don't understand, you can always watch the videos and all that. So stay alive and also try to practice more. See you in the next class. Bye bye.